rising above its failures. Even in darkness, there's still a chance for grace, for forgiveness.
That idea of finding a paradise within, that really sticks with me. True happiness, it's not about the outside world, it's about our inner state, our connection with Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely.
Today, we're heading straight to Neverland
Oh, excellent.
to explore J.M. Barrie's original Peter Pan and Wendy.
Straight from the source.
No Disney, no Broadway, just pure Barrie.
Love it.
So get ready to relive some of that magic
Yeah.
and maybe uncover some hidden depths to this classic tale.
You know what's so fascinating about going back to the source material like this?
Mm-hmm.
You often find these details you might have totally missed as a child.
Like what?
Like the very beginning, Barry sets the scene in the Darling nursery.
Right.
And it's this incredibly ordered, almost sterile world
Huh.
ruled by their nanny, Nana,
Okay.
who just happens to be a Newfoundland dog.
A dog nanny.
Right.
So whimsical.
It is?
But it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
is Barrie kind of subtly hinting at what childhood the Darling children are missing out on?
Possibly.
I mean, Nana's great at schedules and baths,
Sure.
but where's the spontaneous fun?
Well, it's like Barry is setting up this contrast right from the very first page.
How so?
On the one hand, you have the security and comfort of the nursery,
Right.
but it's almost suffocating
Yeah.
in its orderliness.
Interesting.
And then there's this undercurrent of something much wilder,
Uh-huh.
hinted at through Mrs. Darling
Yeah.
and her worries about Peter Pan
Oh, right.
and those mysterious skeleton leaves that she keeps finding.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of Peter,
Yes,
he makes quite an entrance.
he does.
Loses his shadow in the nursery.
Literally loses it.
Such a strange detail.
It's brilliant, though.
Really?
If you think about it,
How so?
that shadow,
Yeah.
it's like a piece of Peter's connection to the real world, like his grounding.
Oh, okay.
So by losing it,
Yeah.
he becomes even more untethered,
Uh-huh.
existing solely in the realm of Neverland.
I see. And then it's Wendy who sews it back on.
Of course.
Talk about a metaphor
Oh, yeah.
for her trying to, like, stretch him back down to earth.
Totally. And not just him.
What do you mean?
She sews on the shadows of John and Michael later on, too.
Oh, right.
So there's this sense that Wendy, even as a child,
Yeah.
she represents this bridge
Yeah.
between the world of imagination
Uh-huh.
and the responsibilities of reality.
And then, of course, there's that whole concept of fairies dying out
Oh, yeah.
because children are losing their belief.
Right.
That always gave me chills as a kid.
Barry's playing with some pretty profound ideas here.
Like,
What happens when we stop believing in the impossible?
yeah,
Does a part of us die along with those fairies?
definitely food for thought.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
the moment we've all been waiting for,
Yes.
Peter teaches them to fly.
It's all about happy thoughts and fairy dust, right?
Well, yeah.
More than that,
What else?
it's about a complete surrender to belief. The children have to let go of logic and doubt,
Okay.
embrace the impossible,
Uh-huh.
and it's that leap of faith
Yeah.
that allows them to soar.
Such a powerful image.
It is.
Of freedom escaping those confines of the nursery.
Right.
Even if it's just temporary.
Where did they escape to?
Where?
Neverland.
Oh, Neverland.
Barry paints this incredibly vivid picture
Yeah.
of this compact island teeming with lagoons, mermaids, pirates, Indians, wild beasts.
It sounds like paradise.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not all sunshine and fairy dust.
Oh, no.
There's this brutal, almost Darwinian aspect to Neverland.
Really?
Like each group,
Okay.
the pirates, the Indians, the Lost Boys,
Yeah.
they're locked in this constant struggle for survival.
Oh, wow.
Like this cycle of predator and prey.
So there's danger lurking beneath the surface.
There you
All
go.
that fun and adventure.
Yeah, and that danger is kind of embodied in Captain Hook.
Peter's nemesis.
Yes. What's fascinating about Hook,
Hmm.
he's consumed by time.
Time.
He's constantly checking his pocket watch.
Oh, wow.
He's terrified of aging and death.
Which is the complete opposite of Peter,
Right.
who represents eternal youth.
Exactly Hook's obsession.
Yeah. With controlling time
Uh-huh.
and Neverland's unpredictable nature,
Yeah.
it clashes directly with Peter's embrace of chaos and spontaneity.
So their rivalry goes beyond
It does.
just a simple battle of good versus evil.
It almost becomes a philosophical clash
Yow.
between these two ways of being.
Interesting. It raises the question then.
Yeah.
Is Hook's relentless pursuit of Peter a way of trying to reclaim that lost youthfulness?
Possibly.
That part of himself that fears growing old?
Could be. And speaking of Neverland's inhabitants,
Yes.
let's talk about the Lost Boys.
Okay.
They live underground
Yeah.
with their ever-growing table
Right.
and secret entrances.
It's like this constantly evolving, adaptable space
It is.
that reflects the whims of the children who live there.
The Neverland literally changes
Wow.
based on their desires and imagination.
It's the ultimate expression of a
Okay.
world without rules or limitations.
Pretty much.
What then?
Wendy arrives.
Oh, and things start to shift a little bit.
How so?
She brings this dose of domesticity
Okay.
to the Lost Boys' wild existence.
Interesting.
She establishes routines, tells stories, mends their clothes.
She becomes a surrogate mother,
In a way,
bringing that sense of order and stability
she does.
to their chaotic lives.
Yes. Which, in a way, makes her the antithesis of Peter.
Oh, really?
She represents that natural progression
Uh-huh.
towards adulthood and responsibility,
Okay.
while Peter clings desperately to eternal boyhood.
And that tension
Yeah,
is at the heart of their relationship,
it
a
is.
dynamic that plays out
It does.
in so many fascinating ways
Oh, yeah.
throughout this story.
It really does.
I can't wait to unpack it further.
Me too.
Yeah.
And you know that tension we were talking about?
Yeah, that tension between Wendy growing up and Peter refusing to.
It really comes to a head
Yeah.
when she starts longing for home.
Oh, it's so heartbreaking.
It is.
But I mean, you can kind of see it coming.
Yeah.
You know, Wendy's naturally nurturing.
She is.
She thrives on creating a sense of home and family.
Right, even in a place like Neverland.
It's like she's instinctively preparing herself
Yeah,
for the adult world,
Right.
even if she doesn't quite realize it.
exactly. And meanwhile, Peter
Yeah.
is horrified by the very idea of growing up.
He sees it as a kind of death.
Yeah, like a death of who he is.
And that brings us to one of the most iconic scenes,
Which one?
the confrontation on Marooner's Rock
Oh, yeah.
with Captain Hook.
Such a pivotal moment.
Why do you say that?
Well, for a few reasons.
Okay.
First, you have this incredible display of Peter's bravery and cunning.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he tricks Hook.
Yeah.
He uses the ticking crocodile
Right.
to instill fear
Yeah.
and ultimately defeats him.
It's so satisfying
It is.
to see him outsmart that villain.
But you know there's a deeper layer here, too?
Oh, really?
Hook represents everything that Peter rejects.
Like what?
Responsibility, the
Yeah.
passage of time,
Uh-huh.
the fear of the unknown.
So by vanquishing Hook,
Yeah.
Peter is symbolically conquering those fears.
At least for a while.
But those fears are still lurking, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Especially as Wendy's desire to go home gets stronger.
That's what makes the ending so bittersweet.
It is.
You know, Wendy chooses to return to the real world, to
Right.
grow up,
Yeah.
embrace those responsibilities.
Oh.
And Peter,
Yeah.
he's left behind forever a boy.
In Neverland.
It makes you wonder,
Yeah.
is Peter truly happy?
Hmm.
Or is this refusal to grow up
Yeah.
like a tragic denial?
It's a question that's haunted readers for generations,
Right.
and there's no easy answer.
It's interesting, though, how Barry
Yeah.
leaves it open to interpretation.
I think that's part of the story's brilliance.
You know, there's also that whole subplot with Tinkerbell,
Oh, Tinkerbell, yeah.
who's often portrayed as this jealous, spiteful fairy.
Right.
But Barry gives her
He does.
this moment of incredible selflessness.
It's kind of shocking, actually.
What is?
Her decision to drink the poison medicine meant for Peter.
Oh, yeah.
It's a total reversal of her character.
Right.
Suddenly, she's capable of this immense love
Yeah.
and sacrifice.
Makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about her.
It does. And then, of course, there's that iconic moment
Which one?
where Peter pleads with the audience to clap.
If they believe in fairies.
Yes. He's literally breaking the fourth wall,
Well,
asking for our help to save Tinkerbell's life.
and it works.
It does.
The power of belief
Brings her back.
from the brink of death.
Powerful testament to the magic of imagination.
It is. It also speaks to the idea
Yeah.
that we have a responsibility
We do
to nurture that belief.
in ourselves,
Yeah.
but in others too,
Because if we stop believing,
right?
the fairies might truly disappear.
Oh, they might. Okay, so Wendy and her brothers.
Right. They decide to go home.
Yeah.
But what about the lost boys?
That's a good question.
They can't stay in Neverland forever, can they?
Well, that's where Mrs. Darling comes in. Oh, Mrs. Darling.
Remember, she's been waiting
Yeah.
for her children to come back.
Right. Filled with guilt and regret.
And when they finally arrive,
Yeah.
she agrees to adopt all the lost boys.
It's a beautiful act of compassion.
It is. It also suggests
Hmm.
a kind of awakening within Mrs. Darling.
Oh, really?
She's letting go
Yeah.
of some of her societal constraints,
Uh-huh.
embracing a more whimsical,
Okay.
open-hearted way of being.
Hmm.
It's almost as if she's reclaiming a part of herself
Yeah.
that she had lost?
So even though Peter refuses to grow up,
Right.
the people around him are forced to confront
They are.
the complexities of adulthood.
That mix of joy and sorrow,
Yeah.
responsibility and freedom.
And that's the lasting legacy of Peter Pan, isn't it?
It is. It's not just a children's story.
What is it?
It's a meditation on what we lose and what we gain,
Uh-huh.
and what we choose to hold on to as we journey through life.
It reminds us that even though growing up is inevitable,
There's still room for magic and wonder.
if we're willing to make space for it.
I like that a lot. It's interesting, too, how when they come back,
Back to the nursery,
Yeah.
it's different.
yeah, like the house itself seems to reflect
Yeah.
that transition.
Barry describes it subtly,
Yeah.
like the nursery feels more somber.
Hmm.
Mrs. Darling seems to have aged.
Yeah.
Like there's a sense that time has passed,
Right.
which makes the return even more poignant.
They can't fully go back
No.
to the innocence of before.
Right, even though they're back in the same space.
It's like a physical reminder that they've grown.
Yes. And that sense of change,
Yeah.
it extends to the parents too.
In what way?
Well, Mr. Darling especially undergoes this interesting transformation.
Oh, so.
At the start,
Yeah.
he's so concerned with
Yeah.
appearances,
Right.
with fitting in with his neighbors.
Remember how worried he was about having a dog as a nanny?
Exactly. But when the children are gone,
Yeah.
he completely unravels. He blames himself.
Oh, wow.
Sleeps in Nana's kennel.
Hmm.
It's like the experience cracks open his rigid exterior,
Yeah.
reveals a depth of emotion that he wasn't even aware of.
Wow. So it's like he's forced to confront his own inner child
Yes, the part of himself
Right.
that's been suppressed.
by societal expectations.
Right, exactly. And that vulnerability
Yeah.
allows him to ultimately connect
With
with the Lost Boys on a much deeper level.
He's not just adopting them out of duty then.
No, there's a genuine sense of kinship there.
I see. So even though Peter refuses to grow up,
Yeah.
the people around him
Yeah.
are forced to confront
Right.
those complexities of adulthood.
That mix of joy and sorrow,
Yeah.
responsibility and freedom.
And that's the lasting legacy of Peter Pan then.
I think so. It's not just a children's story.
It's more like a meditation
It is.
on what we lose and what we gain
And what we choose to hold on to.
as we go through life.
Yeah. It reminds us that even though growing up is inevitable, there's still room for magic and wonder.
If we're willing to make space for it.
Exactly. So keep your eyes peeled for
Oh,
open
yeah.
windows
Okay.
and listen closely.
For what?
You never know when a sprinkle of fairy dust might come your way.
Reminding you that Neverland might be closer than you think.
Maybe.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive
It does.
into Peter Pan and Wendy.
Oh, that's fun.
We hope you enjoyed this journey back to Neverland.
Me too.
Until next time, stay curious
Yes.
and keep exploring. welcome to the Deep Dive. We're diving into the world of Jane Austen today.
Oh, fantastic.
You've sent us excerpts from Pride and Prejudice,
Wonderful.
and we are so excited to explore them with you.
I always find it fascinating to revisit Austen's work.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something new to discover.
Isn't that the truth? Okay, so we're diving into your specific excerpt from Pride and Prejudice,
Okay.
one of the most beloved novels of all time.
Yes.
And let me tell you, even for someone like me who practically lives between the pages of a good book,
Right.
these excerpts have so much to unpack.
I agree. It's remarkable how a few carefully chosen passages can open up so many avenues for discussion.
Right. It's like Austen packed a whole universe of observation and social commentary
Absolutely.
into a single sentence sometimes.
Yeah.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's set the scene for our listener.
Okay.
Imagine, if you will, the English countryside in the early 1800s.
A time of grand estates, intricate social rules, and of course the ever-present pressure on young ladies to secure advantageous marriages.
Exactly. And that brings us to the heart of our story. The Bennet family.
Okay.
5 daughters, each with their own distinct personalities and, let's just say,
Yes.
varying degrees of marriage potential.
Mrs. Bennet, their mother, is particularly invested in their marital prospects, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Mrs. Bennet practically vibrates with excitement at the mere mention of an eligible bachelor.
Of course.
And as luck would have it, an eligible bachelor does appear on the scene
Right.
in the form of the charming Mr. Bingley, who takes up residence at the nearby estate of Netherfield.
Much to Mrs. Bennet's delight. I'm sure Bingley's arrival sets the wheels of social maneuvering in motion, doesn't it?
Absolutely. He's practically a prize to be won in her eyes.
Yeah.
And her eldest daughter, Jane, well, she's practically the picture of elegant beauty and sweet temperament.
The ideal match, at least superficially.
Right.
But this is Jane Austen we're talking about.
Exactly.
Of course, nothing is ever quite as simple as it seems.
You know it. Enter Mr. Darcy Bingley's friend. He's handsome, wealthy, and about as approachable as a locked chest.
Darcy's aloof demeanor and obvious pride rub Elizabeth, the protagonist of our story, entirely the wrong way.
To put it mildly, their first encounters are a masterclass in witty banter and thinly veiled disdain.
Austen excels at those charged exchanges, doesn't she?
She does.
The reader can practically feel the sparks fly between Elizabeth and Darcy, even as they're circling each other with suspicion.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But remember, we're only seeing a glimpse of the story through these excerpts.
Right.
What I find really intriguing is how, even in these brief moments, Austen drops these little breadcrumbs, these hints of what's to come.
Yes.
Take, for example, the seemingly insignificant detail you pointed out about Darcy returning his own coffee cup.
Yes. On the surface, it appears unremarkable, even mundane.
Right.
However, within the context of Austen's meticulously crafted social world,
Okay.
it speaks volumes.
Okay, so break it down for me.
Sure.
What does this seemingly insignificant detail tell us about Darcy?
It reveals a quiet defiance of the rigid social hierarchy of the time. You see, in Austen's world, a man of Darcy's stature would typically expect servants to attend to even the smallest tasks.
Okay, I'm starting to see where you're going with this. So, by taking care of this simple act himself, Darcy is subtly challenging those expectations.
Precisely. He's signaling a disregard for the expected social performance, hinting at a more complex and nuanced character than his initial appearances might suggest.
It's like that saying, actions speak louder than words. Or in Darcy's case, actions involving coffee cups speak volumes. But while Elizabeth is busy trying to decipher Darcy's true nature, there's another drama unfolding, right? Enter Mr. Wickham, a charming militia officer who seems to have a bone to pick with Darcy.
Wickham. He's a master manipulator adept at weaving tales of woe and presenting himself as the wronged party. He quickly captures Elizabeth's sympathy, further fueling her distrust of Darcy.
And he's handsome, charming, and knows how to flatter. Basically everything a young woman in that era would find appealing, especially in contrast to the brooding Mr. Darcy. But let's not forget about the other Bennet sisters. We've got Jane, who's head over heels for Bingley. But their path to true love is paved with obstacles, mainly in the form of Bingley's snobbish sisters and their interference.
Their disapproval highlights the importance of social standing in Austen's world. Even genuine affection can be thwarted by societal pressures and expectations.
And then there's Elizabeth, who finds herself not only navigating the complexities of her feelings for Darcy, but also fending off the unwanted advances of Mr. Collins, a pompous and utterly clueless clergyman.
His disastrous proposal to Elizabeth is one for the ages, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's a masterclass in social awkwardness and comedic cold. Austen skewers his inflated ego and presumptuousness with her signature wit, all while revealing Elizabeth's own independent spirit and sharp intelligence.
And in a move that surprises even her closest friend Charlotte Elizabeth, flatly rejects Mr. Collins.
Which, of course, throws Mrs. Bennet into a tizzy. But Charlotte, ever the pragmatist, sees an opportunity in Mr. Collins. She accepts his proposal, much to Elizabeth's dismay.
Charlotte's decision, while difficult for Elizabeth to comprehend, reflects the limited options available to women of that era. Marriage, even to a man like Mr. Collins, offered security and social standing that spinsterhood could not.
It's a stark reminder of the societal constraints placed upon women during that time. While the Bennet sisters might enjoy a certain amount of freedom within their family, their future prospects ultimately hinge on their ability to secure a suitable marriage.
Precisely. And just when it seems like the social waters couldn't get any murkier, Austen throws a bombshell into the mix. Lydia, the youngest and most impulsive Bennet sister, elopes with none other than Mr. Wickham.
Talk about scandal. Lydia's elopement sends shockwaves through the Bennet family and their little corner of society. Remember, this is a time when a woman's reputation was paramount, and Lydia's actions have jeopardized not only her future but that of her entire family.
The excerpt you sent captures the Bennet family's utter despair so vividly, Mrs. Bennet descends into hysterics. Mr. Bennet is beside himself with anger and shame, and Elizabeth is left grappling with the knowledge that her initial judgment of Wickham was so tragically flawed.
It's a complete disaster. But it's also a turning point in the story because it forces Darcy into action. And his actions, I have to say, reveal more about his character than all the coffee cup incidents in the world.
Indeed. Driven by a sense of honor and a growing regard for Elizabeth, Darcy takes it upon himself to resolve the situation, secretly tracking down Wickham and Lydia.
And we know he convinces Wickham to marry Lydia, saving the family from social ruin.
But Austen masterfully keeps the details of their arrangement shrouded in mystery, leaving the reader and even Elizabeth to speculate about the true cost of Darcy's intervention.
And this is where things get really interesting between Elizabeth and Darcy, right? Because this act of quiet heroism completely shatters Elizabeth's preconceived notions about him.
Precisely. She begins to see the man beneath the proud exterior, recognizing his integrity and genuine compassion. But with this newfound understanding comes a wave of guilt and regret for her past judgments.
Especially when she learns the truth about Wickham's past misdeeds from Darcy's aunt. It's a pivotal moment of self-reflection for Elizabeth as she realizes the depth of her own prejudice. It's like the rug has been pulled out from under her.
And yet it's a necessary upheaval. This revelation paves the way for a more honest and profound connection between Elizabeth and Darcy. But as you know, their path to happiness is far from smooth.
Oh, there are more obstacles ahead. I have a feeling I know who might be involved. Lady Catherine de Bourgh, perhaps.
You know your Austen.
Yeah.
Darcy's formidable aunt makes a dramatic entrance determined to prevent a marriage between her nephew and the seemingly unsuitable Elizabeth Bennet.
Of course. Because a woman as independent and sharp-witted as Elizabeth could never meet the standards of someone like Lady Catherine.
Precisely. But what Lady Catherine fails to realize is that her interference only strengthens the bond between Elizabeth and Darcy.
So what happens when Lady Catherine confronts Elizabeth? Does she manage to intimidate her?
Not at all. Elizabeth stands her ground, refusing to be bullied or swayed by Lady Catherine's threats and pronouncements of her own importance.
That sounds like our Lizzie. I can only imagine the look on Lady Catherine's face.
Oh, it's a moment of pure Austenian brilliance. Lady Catherine, used to getting her own way, completely underestimates Elizabeth's spirit and intelligence.
And her interference backfires spectacularly, doesn't it?
Indeed. Unwittingly, Lady Catherine provides the final push that Darcy needs. You see, her attempt to thwart the relationship only reveals to him the depth of Elizabeth's feelings, giving him the courage to propose again.
And this time Elizabeth says yes.
Of course. They've weathered storms of pride, prejudice, and meddling aunts. Their love, now tempered by understanding and respect, can finally blossom.
It's the happy ending we've all been rooting for. But this being Jane Austen, I suspect there's more to it than just a simple happily ever after. What about the Bennet family? Does Lydia's scandalous elopement cast a shadow over their future?
Interestingly, Austen doesn't shy away from the complexities of the situation. While Lydia's reputation might be tarnished, her marriage does pave the way for Jane and Bingley to reunite free from the disapproval of Bingley's sisters.
That's true. With Lydia seemingly settled, Bingley can return his affections to Jane without the threat of social ruin. And what about Elizabeth's other sister, Mary? You know, the one who's always quoting books and trying to appear wiser than she is.
Mary Austen leaves her fate somewhat ambiguous. It's hinted that she might never find a husband who truly appreciates her, but then again, perhaps she'll find contentment in her own way, on her own terms.
It makes you wonder if that's Austen's subtle commentary on the expectations placed upon women. It's as if she's saying that marriage isn't the only path to happiness.
Precisely. And remember Mrs. Bennet. She's over the moon now that 3 of her daughters are married.
Oh, I bet. I can practically hear her boasting to her friends about wedding bells and advantageous matches.
But even with all the excitement, Austen subtly hints that Mrs. Bennet hasn't really learned from the experience. Her focus remains firmly fixed on outward appearances and social triumphs, rather than genuine growth or change.
So in the end, Austen gives us a satisfying resolution while still staying true to the complexities of her characters and the society they inhabit.
Exactly, and that's what makes Pride and Prejudice such a timeless masterpiece. It's a story about love, family, and the challenges of navigating societal expectations, but more importantly, it's a story about self-discovery, about recognizing our own flaws and choosing to be better, more understanding individuals.
And so ends our deep dive into the world of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice.
It's been a pleasure to explore these excerpts with you and to uncover the layers of meaning woven into Austen's words.
Absolutely. Now, listener, we want to hear from you. As you revisit these passages, what stands out to you most? What new insights have you gained about the characters, the themes, or Austen's masterful storytelling? Keep those thoughts swirling, and we'll see you on our next deep dive. Happy reading. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into one of the most famous love stories ever told, Romeo and Juliet.
A classic.
It really is. We're going right back to the source for this one, Shakespeare's play.
The original.
Exactly. And we're
Yeah.
going to cover the whole thing start to finish.
The whole story.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. The play itself is only about 2 hours long when you see it on stage.
Oh, wow, really?
I know, right? 2 hours for all that drama.
Shakespeare packed it all in.
Before we get into it, though, I'm curious. Have you ever seen like a movie version or read the play itself?
I mean, most people probably know the basics.
Right, but even if you don't know anything about it, the play starts with a prologue that basically lays it all out for you.
Kind of sets the stage.
Yeah, exactly. So it tells us about these two powerful families in Verona.
The Montagues and the Capulets.
Right, and they hate each other, like really, really hate each other.
A generations-long feud.
Exactly. And that hatred, it like spills out in the streets. Everyone gets caught up in
The
it.
whole city is affected.
Yeah, and it's into all of that chaos that Romeo and Juliet, the children of these feuding families, they fall in love.
Talk about forbidden love.
The prologue actually calls them star-crossed lovers,
Yeah.
which always makes me think about fate, you know?
Like it's destiny.
Yeah, like their ending is already written in the stars.
Do you think Shakespeare really believed in that? Like fate?
That's what makes the play so interesting, right? Because Shakespeare makes you wonder if Romeo and Juliet ever had a chance.
If it was always going to end in tragedy.
Exactly. But the idea that love can be so powerful that it defies even fate, I mean, that's what makes the story so timeless. You know?
It definitely makes you think.
Okay, so we've got these warring families, this impossible love, and the idea of fate hanging over everything. Let's jump into acts.
All right.
So right away, we see just how bad this feud is. There's a huge street fight between the Montagues and Capulets.
I mean, a brawl.
Yeah. It gets so bad that even regular people from the town, they start joining in.
Like everyone's taking sides.
And then Prince Aeschylus, he's like the ruler of Verona.
the big boss.
Yeah, he shows up and he's furious. He basically says, if you fight again, you die.
No more fighting or else.
Yeah, he's serious. So we see how this hatred affects everyone. It's dangerous.
It really sets the tone for the play.
Totally. So where's Romeo in all of this?
Well, at the beginning, he's head over heels for this girl, Rosaline.
Oh, Rosaline. She's not really into him, though, right?
No, she doesn't love him back.
So Romeo's heartbroken, moping around.
Yeah, he's all melancholy.
Classic teenage drama, right?
Hey, we've all been there.
I guess so. But Rosaline isn't who the play's named after, so.
Nope, that's where Juliet comes in.
Right. So Romeo, he ends up at this party.
At the Capulets' house.
Of all places.
I know. He crashes the party with his friends, Benvolio and Mercutio.
And that's where he sees Juliet.
The first time,
And bam, love at first sight.
he totally forgets about Rosaline.
Like instantly.
Yep. He's completely captivated by Juliet.
That's Shakespeare for you. No time wasted.
Well,
But it really shows how passionate Romeo is, you know.
totally. And impulsive, too.
Yeah, he definitely acts on his feelings, which I guess leads us to the most famous scene in the play.
You're talking about the balcony scene, right?
Oh, you know it. Juliet's on her balcony, talking to herself, not knowing Romeo's listening down below.
And then she says that line.
The line, "O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" I mean, everyone knows that line.
But there's so much more to it than just a declaration of love.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't like Shakespeare scholars, what's going on in that scene?
Well, Juliet's thinking about their names, Montague and Capulet.
The Amy families.
Right. And she's like, why does the guy I love have to have that name? It's not fair.
Because their families would never let them be together.
Exactly. So she's really struggling with how their love can even exist with all this hate around them.
It's so much deeper than just, "Oh, Romeo, I love you."
Definitely. And what's great about that scene is we see how smart Juliet is.
Oh, yeah. She's not just blindly following her heart.
No, she's thinking about everything, all the consequences.
She's a strong character.
For sure.
So they've connected in this super romantic, but also very dangerous way. What do they do next? Sneak around for more moonlight chats.
Well, they're definitely passionate, so they decide to make a bold move.
Oh, this is good. What do they do?
They decide to get married.
Wow. But in secret, right?
Of course. They need someone to help them, though.
This is Shakespeare, so I bet it's not going to be easy.
And that's where Friar Lawrence comes in. He's a key character in Act 2. He's like a priest, right?
Yeah, Friar Lawrence, he's a Franciscan monk, and he's like a confidant to both Romeo and Juliet.
So he agrees to marry them. In secret.
He does.
Yeah.
But it's super risky for him to get involved.
I mean, if anyone found out.
It would be bad news for everyone. But Friar Lawrence, he hopes that by marrying them, it might actually help end the feud.
That's a lot of pressure on a marriage.
Seriously. But I guess it shows how much faith he has in their love and how desperate he is for peace.
It definitely shows he's a hopeful guy.
But let's be real, Romeo and Juliet, they're moving pretty fast. They just met.
Yeah. It's definitely a whirlwind romance.
That's one way to put it. I guess it adds to the drama.
Romeo's is exciting.
Definitely keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Mm.
So what about Romeo's buddies, Benvolio and Mercutio? What are they up to in Act 2?
Well, Mercutio, he's the life of the party.
He's so funny.
Right, he's always cracking jokes, making light of everything.
The nice contrast to Romeo, who's all serious about love.
Yeah, Mercutio brings some much-needed comic relief to the play.
I love his character.
But it makes what happens to him even more tragic.
Oh yeah, things take a dark turn later on.
Definitely.
Speaking of bringing the funny, we also meet the nurse in Act 2, right?
Juliet's nurse. Oh, yeah, she's great.
She's hilarious. And she's totally devoted to Juliet.
Like a second mother to her.
She's the one who helps Romeo and Juliet communicate in secret.
Passes messages back and forth.
Exactly. And she's a big part of how they're able to get married.
She's a key player for sure.
So we've got a secret marriage, a family feud that's out of control, and Romeo's best friend heading for a tragic end.
Sounds like Shakespeare's setting us up for some major drama.
Well, it's coming. Act 3 is where things really explode.
Okay, I'm ready. What happens?
Well, it all starts with this duel.
A duel. Between who?
Mercutio, Romeo's friend, and Tybalt.
Tybalt. Who's he?
He's Juliet's cousin.
Oh, so this is a family affair.
Big time. Tybalt, he's got a serious temper, always looking for a fight.
So they're dueling. What happens?
Well, Romeo, he tries to stop it. He doesn't want anyone to get hurt.
He's trying to be the peacemaker.
Exactly. But it backfires. Big time.
Oh, no. What happened?
Tybalt ends up killing Mercutio.
Oh, wow. That's a huge turning point in the play.
It really is. Everything changes after this.
I bet Romeo's devastated.
He is. And furious. He blames Tybalt for Mercutio's death.
So what does he do?
He takes revenge. He kills Tybalt.
Oh, wow. So now he's a murderer.
And he's got to face the consequences.
Which are?
Remember Prince Aeschylus? He said, any more fighting and you die.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Well, Romeo killed Tybalt, so.
He's in big trouble.
Yep, but the prince, he decides to show some mercy.
Oh, so Romeo doesn't die.
No, but he does get banished from Verona.
Banished. So he can never come home again.
Exactly. And for Romeo, that's a fate worse than death.
How come?
Well, he's just married Juliet. He's madly in love with her.
Yeah.
And now he can't even see her.
That's brutal.
Plus, in those days, being banished, it meant losing everything, your home, your family, your identity.
It was like being cut off from the world.
Exactly. So, Romeo's in despair. He thinks his life is over.
And poor Juliet. Can you imagine how she's feeling?
It's got to be heartbreaking for her. She finds out her cousin is dead and that her husband is responsible.
And then he gets banished. Talk about a bad day.
This is where we get one of Juliet's most famous speeches.
Oh, yeah, the O Serpent Heart speech, right?
That's the one. She's so conflicted. She loves Romeo, but he killed her cousin.
It's like her whole world is falling apart.
It's a powerful scene. Shakespeare really captures her pain and confusion.
So what happens next? Do Romeo and Juliet ever see each other again?
Well, their situation seems impossible. Romeo's gone, and Juliet's parents, they're still trying to control her life.
They want her to marry Paris, remember?
Yep. And they have no idea she's already married to Romeo.
This is getting complicated.
Juliet's trapped. She doesn't know what to do.
So she turns to Friar Lawrence for help again?
She does. And he comes up with this crazy plan.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does he suggest?
It involves a potion, a fake death, and a whole lot of hoping for the best.
Sounds like Shakespeare. All right, let's hear it. Okay, so Juliet's in a tough spot. Her parents want her to marry this guy, Paris, but she's already married to Romeo, who's banished, and she can't tell anyone.
That's a mess. What does Friar Lawrence come up with?
He gives Juliet this potion.
A potion?
Yeah, it'll make her look like she's dead.
Like really dead?
Yep. She'll be all pale and still, no pulse, the whole 9 yards.
Wow, so what's the plan?
They'll put her in the family tomb,
Yeah.
like she's actually dead.
And then?
Friar Lawrence, he's going to send a message to Romeo explaining everything.
Telling him that she's not really dead.
Exactly. Romeo's supposed to come back to Verona and rescue her from the tomb before she wakes up.
That's a risky plan.
Oh, it's super risky. But they're desperate.
What if the message doesn't reach Romeo?
That's the big problem, isn't it? This whole plan hinges on everything going perfectly.
And with Shakespeare, you know something's going to go wrong.
Oh, absolutely. Act V is full of dramatic irony. We know Juliet's not really dead, but Romeo doesn't.
So he thinks she's gone forever.
And that's where the real tragedy begins.
Okay, so what happens? Does the message get to Romeo?
Nope. Friar Lawrence sends it, but it never reaches Romeo.
Oh, no.
Instead, Romeo hears from his servant, Balthazar, that Juliet is dead.
That's awful. He doesn't know it's a trick.
Romeo's completely heartbroken. He believes Juliet is gone and he can't live without her.
So what does he do?
He decides to go back to Verona, to Juliet's tomb.
But he's banished.
He doesn't care anymore. He just wants to be with Juliet, even in death.
This is so sad.
And to make things even worse, Romeo buys poison from an apothecary.
He's going to kill himself.
Yeah, he plans to drink the poison at Juliet's tomb so he can die by her side.
This is just heartbreaking.
It really is. Romeo's love for Juliet is so strong that he's willing to die for her, even though he doesn't have to.
It's like his grief blinds him to everything else.
Yeah, he's not thinking straight. He's just acting on his emotions.
So he goes to the tomb. What happens then?
Romeo arrives at the Capulet tomb, determined to end his life.
Does he know that Juliet's not really dead?
Nope, he's still in the dark thinking she's gone forever.
Oh man, this is getting intense.
It gets even crazier because he runs into Paris at the tomb.
Paris, the guy Juliet's parents want her to marry.
Yep, he's there mourning Juliet, bringing flowers and stuff.
So what happens? Do they fight?
Paris sees Romeo and thinks he's there to desecrate the tomb, so he tries to stop him.
Oh no. Poor Paris, he's just caught in the middle of all this.
Romeo, he's not in his right mind. He's consumed by grief, and he ends up killing Paris.
Another death. This is getting so tragic.
I know. It just shows how far gone Romeo is. He's not thinking clearly at all.
So then what, does he finally see Juliet?
Yeah, he enters the tomb, and there she is, lying in her tomb, looking like she's dead.
And he still thinks she's really gone.
He delivers this whole heartbreaking speech talking about how much he loves her, how he can't live without her.
This is like the climax of the whole play, right?
It is. It's full of emotion. It's Romeo at his most desperate and heartbroken.
And then he drinks the poison.
Yep, he drinks the poison and dies right there next to Juliet.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
And the worst part is, just moments after Romeo dies, Juliet wakes up.
You're kidding?
Nope. She wakes up from the potion and finds Romeo lying there dead beside her.
Oh, the timing. It's just awful.
It's the ultimate Shakespearean tragedy. If only she had woken up a few minutes earlier.
What does she do?
Juliet's devastated. She sees Romeo dead, the poison vial, and she realizes what's happened.
She knows he killed himself for her.
And she can't imagine living without him, so she takes his dagger and kills herself, too.
Double suicide. It's so brutal, but also so romantic in a way.
It's definitely a powerful ending. It leaves you speechless.
So that's it. Everyone's dead. What about the families?
Well, with Romeo and Juliet gone, the truth about their marriage comes out.
Finally.
The families, they see their children dead, and they realize the terrible cost of their hatred.
It took this tragedy to finally end the feud.
It did. They finally come together and vow to end the violence, but it's too late. Their children are gone.
Peace at last, but it's such a high price.
It really makes you think about the destructive power of hatred.
So is that the message of Romeo and Juliet? That hate destroys everything.
It's definitely a big part of it, but it's also about love, Romeo and Juliet, they were willing to risk everything for each other.
They defied their families, they got married in secret, they even died for their love.
Their love was powerful, but it was also destructive. It ultimately led to their deaths.
It's like a warning, a cautionary tale about the dangers of both love and hate.
Exactly. It's a complex play with no easy answers, and that's what makes it so fascinating.
Well, I'm definitely going to go see it performed live now. Hearing you talk about it like this, it's given me a whole new appreciation for the story.
I highly recommend it. Seeing it on stage, you really feel the power of Shakespeare's words.
And for everyone listening, if you haven't experienced Romeo and Juliet, I urge you to. Whether it is reading the play or seeing a performance, it's a story that will stay with you.
It's a classic for a reason.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Romeo and Juliet. It's been a really insightful discussion.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration. Until then, keep diving. All right, let's do it. Let's take a deep dive into, well, the Aeneid.
Virgil's epic.
It's one of the most influential epics ever written, and we're going to be using John Dryden's translation
Excellent translation.
to guide us as we follow Aeneas,
A Trojan prince.
on his journey to found Rome.
It's a wild ride.
It is a wild ride.
Yeah.
Gods and goddesses, epic battles, shipwrecks, prophecies, even a trip to the underworld.
It's amazing how much Virgil packed into this.
It's amazing.
This epic.
Yeah.
He managed to weave together history and mythology
Yeah,
and even some political commentary,
totally.
all while telling a really compelling story.
Yeah, it's really well done. So it all starts with a shipwreck.
Of course.
Book drops us right into the action.
Right in there.
Aeneas and his fellow Trojans, they get caught in this fearsome storm.
Except by Juno.
Yeah, the goddess Juno. Talk about a rough start.
I know, right?
They end up stranded on the coast of Africa.
Yeah.
And Aeneas, like the great leader he is out hunting stags
Right.
to feed his crew.
Gotta feed the crew.
Yeah, got to feed the people.
And I think it's such a striking scene,
Oh, totally.
because Virgil describes this beautiful landscape, but there's this underlying tension.
Yes.
Because Aeneas and his men, they're refugees. They're
Right.
far from home, and the shadow of Troy's destruction,
Hangs over them.
it really hangs over the whole thing.
The whole story.
Sets the stage for everything.
Yeah, it really does.
All the challenges to come.
Yeah, and all the triumphs. I mean, it's this blend of beauty and hardship,
Yes,
And that's what's interesting. It highlights the human element of the story.
for sure.
And speaking of humanity, here comes Dido,
Queen Dido.
Queen Dido of Carthage, who offers the Trojans refuge.
She's great.
Yeah, she's great. But, of course, we know Juno is lurking in the background,
Oh, yeah, she's not going away.
making Aeneas' life as miserable as possible.
Plotting and scheming.
Oh, absolutely.
Her vendetta against the Trojans is like a driving force.
A major driving force
Sure.
throughout the whole epic. And it stems from, a whole series of events, right?
It goes way back
Like way back.
to the Trojan War,
Like the Judgment of Paris.
the Judgment of Paris.
Picking Aphrodite over her.
Yeah, not a good move.
And then the prophecies foretelling the future power of Rome, which she sees as a direct threat
It is a direct threat.
to her. So there's this tension between, like, divine machinations and human actions,
Right.
which just makes it even more captivating. But before we go any further,
Yeah.
with that, let's rewind a bit. Let's go back.
Let's go back.
Book 2 takes us to the fall of Troy.
This is where things get intense.
Things get real.
Aeneas, he's a guest in Dido's court.
Yeah.
He tells the story
Yes.
of that fateful night,
Yeah.
revealing the cunning strategy of the Greeks.
The Greeks, man.
I know.
Those Greeks.
The deceit of Sinon.
And, of course, the Trojan horse.
That horse.
I mean, imagine being a Trojan citizen
Yeah.
and just seeing this giant wooden
It
horse
was huge.
left behind by your enemies. I mean, what would you think?
I don't know. I'd be suspicious.
Some people were. Some people were like, this is not a good idea. Like, Laocoon,
Laocoon, the priest.
the Trojan priest, he's like, do not bring this thing in.
No, dude.
The city walls, this is a bad idea.
He even threw a spear at it.
He did. And then serpents sent by the gods attacked him and his sons. Talk about a chilling omen.
It was terrifying. A
Yeah.
lot of people saw that as a sign.
Oh, for sure.
Divine displeasure.
Yeah, like, don't mess with this horse.
We want it in the city.
Right. You were wrong.
The gods are angry.
Little did they know it's packed with Greek warriors.
It's waiting.
Just strike. And
Mhm.
strike they did.
They did.
The scene that Virgil paints
Yeah.
of the city's downfall.
Heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking, the chaos, the violence, the desperation. It all culminates in this poignant image of Priam.
The aged king.
Yeah.
Arming himself.
For a last stand. I mean, he knows Troy is lost.
But he's going to go down fighting.
He's going to go down fighting.
With courage.
Yeah.
He represents that old order.
Yes.
The grandeur of Troy.
Yeah.
His death is symbolic.
Yeah.
It's the end of an era.
And the need for a new beginning.
A new hope.
A new hope. Which Aeneas embodies.
He does.
Aeneas' escape from the burning city.
I know, like an action movie.
It's crazy. He's carrying his elderly father Anchises on his back,
Right.
leading his young son, Ascanius, by the hand.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And he's desperately searching for his wife,
Crisa.
Creusa.
It really shows his devotion
It does.
to family and duty.
Yeah.
It's piety.
Yeah. But, of course, Amidst the chaos, tragedy strikes again.
He loses her.
He loses Creusa, adding another layer of grief and loss.
To an already heavy burden.
I mean, it's gut-wrenching. You really feel for Aeneas. But as he grieves, Creusa's ghost appears.
It's a vision.
Yeah, a vision, revealing his destiny.
To found a new kingdom in Italy.
Yeah, it's both a consolation
Yes,
and a call to action.
it is.
A reminder that his journey is far from over.
That's what leads us to Book 3,
Exactly.
where he sets sail,
With his surviving Trojans.
embarking on a perilous voyage.
Yeah.
Full of challenges.
So we've witnessed the destruction of Troy,
Yes.
the escape of Aeneas,
The prophecy.
the prophecy.
That sends him on this course.
Sets him on a new course.
Yeah.
Buckle up, because this is just the beginning
This is just the start.
of his incredible adventure.
We're going to see it all.
We are
Storms,
longs.
loss, navigating these waters.
Yeah, guided by fate and the whispers of the gods.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be wild. Aeneas is setting sail with, well, a heavy heart and a prophecy guiding him toward Italy.
Towards Italy.
Book 3 is all about this journey.
It's a tough one.
And it is not smooth sailing.
No, it's not.
Their first stop is the sacred island of Delos.
Home of the Oracle of Apollo.
You'd think, with a God giving directions,
They'd be set.
yeah, you'd think they'd be good.
Divine guidance.
But even prophecies can be a bit cryptic.
A little cryptic.
They misinterpret the oracle's words,
They do.
and they end up in Crete, believing it to be the promised land.
But it's not.
But instead of finding a new home, they face hardship and disease.
It's a reminder
Yeah.
that even heroes chosen by the gods,
Aren't immune to mistakes.
they're human.
Yeah.
They make mistakes.
Grappling with, the challenges of interpreting things, the
Nicely.
complexities of fate.
Yeah,
And just when their hopes start to dwindle, the gods intervene
they do.
through a dream.
Sent to Aeneas.
Yeah.
This time it's clear.
The message is clear.
Italy.
Italy.
Your true destination.
So they pack up again, they set sail, and, face a new series of trials.
Storms.
Hostile tribes.
Yeah.
Even the Cyclops Polyphemus.
Oh, yeah. Imagine escaping the destruction of Troy,
Yeah.
only to come face to face with a one-eyed monster.
I know. It's obstacle after obstacle.
Yeah, one after another.
More and more daunting.
But it highlights the resilience of the Trojans.
Yes, it does.
They've already been through so much,
So much.
but they keep pushing forward
Driven by that belief.
in their destiny.
And you have to remember,
Yeah,
for Virgil's Roman audience,
right,
these weren't just mythological encounters.
right.
They reflected real dangers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Faced by seafarers.
Unpredictable weather,
Unknown lands.
pirates, hostile tribes.
All of it.
It grounds the epic
Yeah.
in the realities of the time.
It makes it relatable.
Yeah, even centuries later.
Absolutely.
But perhaps the most impactful event in Book 3 is Aeneas' encounter
Oh, yeah.
with Queen Dido
In Carthage.
in Carthage. Remember Juno and her schemes?
She's at it again. She orchestrates this passionate love affair.
Between the two.
Yeah.
A classic clash.
Oh, it is.
Between desire
Yeah.
and duty.
Dido offers Aeneas everything. A home, a kingdom, her heart.
Everything.
But Aeneas, bound by his destiny, reminded by Mercury,
a messenger of the gods.
knows he must leave Carthage to fulfill his mission.
That's tough.
It's tough. I mean, can you imagine the scene
Heartbreaking.
where he breaks the news to Dido?
Yeah.
I mean, the pain, the betrayal,
Intense.
sometimes even the greatest love stories can end in tragedy.
She can. And Dido, she curses Aeneas
She does.
and his descendants.
Foreshadowing
The future conflicts.
between Rome and Carthage.
And in a moment of despair,
She takes her own life,
oh, moment.
a pivotal moment,
Aeneas leaves
carrying the weight,
of that curse.
the burden of his decision
He's being tested,
at every turn.
forced to make.
Impossible choices.
And if that wasn't enough,
Right.
more sorrow.
They land in Sicily.
Where Anchises dies.
His father. It's another devastating loss.
Loses his father.
Not only his father,
Loses his counselor.
his wise counselor.
It happens in Sicily,
It's symbolic.
where the whole thing began.
Yeah.
The storm.
The storm that drove them to Carthage.
Full circle.
Yeah, full circle, facing loss and grief
As he gets closer,
to his destination
it emphasizes the cyclical nature,
of his journey.
that push and pull
Yeah.
between fate,
And free will.
the presence of loss and hardship.
Yeah. along the road to greatness.
But he keeps going.
He presses on.
Finally, in Book 7.
They reach the shores of Italy. You'd think this would be a moment of relief,
You would.
the end of their struggles.
But it's not.
But it's not.
Reaching Latium.
Triggers a whole new set of conflicts.
It's like destiny.
It's like destiny itself.
It's testing him.
Yeah. So who are the key players
In
in Latium?
Yeah.
And what sparks this conflict?
Well, we have King Latinus, the ruler of Latium,
He's supposed to marry his daughter, Lavinia, to a foreigner.
according to a prophecy.
Right.
A foreigner who's going to bring greatness.
Greatness to his kingdom.
Latinus sees Aeneas
Yes.
as this guy.
As this prophesied figure.
He welcomes him
But I bet there's someone who isn't thrilled.
about this foreign prince marrying the princess.
Yeah.
Turnus,
Turnus.
a powerful prince.
Ambitious.
Yeah.
Vying for Lavinia's hand.
He's favored by Amata
Lavinia's mother.
and has a lot of support
Yeah.
from the Latins.
So we have divine will
Favoring Aeneas,
versus earthly desires.
Turnus, and Amata.
And of course, Juno.
Can't forget Juno.
Still skeeving
Oh, she's still at it.
against Aeneas.
She sends Alecto,
One of the theories.
one of the Furies,
to stir up trouble.
the embodiment
Of vengeance.
and chaos,
She manipulates Amata, filling her with rage.
against the marriage,
Yeah. And then fuels Turnus's jealousy and pride.
pushing him to war,
It's incredible how Juno just weaves her influence
into everything.
into every aspect of the story.
And then Juno herself,
Yeah.
takes action.
Throws open the gates of war.
Powerful image,
It is
dignified.
the inevitability of conflict.
Shipwrecks,
Aeneas has faced shipwrecks, monsters, heartbreak,
and now war.
and now he's on the brink of war. How can he possibly overcome all of this
That's the question.
and fulfill his destiny?
That's what we're going to find out.
That is the question that drives the rest of the narrative.
In
In the final part of our deep dive,
We're going to see it all.
the heart of the conflict,
The battles,
the epic
of the
battle,
losses,
the devastating losses,
the outcome of this clash.
it's going to be big. So Aeneas is facing this like insurmountable challenge,
Right.
this looming war against Turnus and his allies. And Juno, I mean,
She's still there.
she's not letting up.
Nope.
Book X really kicks things into high gear.
It does.
I mean, right away.
the stakes are raised.
Jupiter
The king of the gods.
calls a council.
He's like, no more.
He's like, okay, that's it. No more divine interference in this war.
Hands off.
No more godly favors. No more direct intervention.
The mortals are on their own.
Wow.
That changes things.
It changes everything. It's
Yeah.
like the gods are saying, all right, you guys made this mess.
Now deal with it.
You deal with the consequences.
It creates this huge tension.
Yeah.
Because both sides are vulnerable.
Yeah.
Even with the prophecies, destinies hanging in the balance, who knows what's going to happen?
Right.
It all comes down to human choices.
Human strategy,
Yeah.
courage,
Luck.
a little bit of luck.
Yeah.
But even with the gods taking a hands-off approach, there are still moments where,
They can't help themselves.
they can't help but like influence things.
A little nudge here and there.
Yeah, in subtle ways.
Or example.
Like, remember those ships that Aeneas built from sacred trees?
Oh, yeah.
Well, thanks to Venus,
His mom.
they get a spectacular makeover.
A divine upgrade.
It's a divine upgrade.
Venus is worried
Oh, of course.
about her son.
Yeah, she was like, this war is raging. I got to protect him.
She pleads with Jupiter.
To protect the ships.
Do something.
And he's like, okay, fine.
Waves his hand.
Oof.
Transforms those ships into beautiful sea nymphs.
So these nymphs, who were once wooden vessels, they guide Aeneas back to his camp.
Just in time.
Yeah, ensuring his safe return right before the big battle.
Subtle, but crucial.
It is.
Shows that the gods still,
They still have a hand in things,
even if they're trying not to.
even though they're supposed to be hands-off. But back on the battlefield, things take a really dark turn.
A tragic turn.
Pallas.
The son of Evander.
Yeah, Aeneas' ally.
Killed by Turnus.
It's devastating.
It is.
And it fuels Aeneas' rage.
And his thirst for revenge.
Oh, yeah, he is out for revenge.
Pallas represents this,
Yeah,
youthful idealism.
heroism.
And his death underscores the tragic cost of war.
And you see Aeneas.
Yeah.
He's consumed by grief.
By fury.
He's like a different person.
almost godlike
Yeah.
in his power and rage.
As Aeneas rampages across the battlefield, seeking vengeance, We see this
With
contrast,
Mezentius,
right,
this Etruscan king,
allied with Turnus.
he's grieving too.
Yeah, for his own son,
Moses.
who sacrifices himself to protect his father.
It's interesting, right?
It's really interesting.
On the one hand, you have Aeneas,
Yeah,
consumed by rage,
yeah,
and then Mezentius,
yeah.
stripped of his arrogance.
Just filled with grief.
It humanizes him
It does.
in a way we haven't seen.
It's a reminder that even in war,
Yeah,
there's still compassion.
agreed.
These human emotions that transcend the battlefield.
And Mezentius' final moments.
Oh, so powerful.
He faces Aeneas,
In a duel,
knowing he can't win.
but he fights with honor,
He does.
just like even in defeat.
There's nobility
Respect.
earned between enemies.
Yeah,
Humanity shining through.
yeah. And speaking of powerful moments, we can't forget the ultimate showdown.
Aeneas versus Turnus.
The fate of Latium.
The future of Rome.
It all hinges on this final confrontation.
It's the culmination of everything.
Everything. The prophecy, the journey, the losses, the battles.
Everything leads to
This moment.
And it is intense.
The duel is intense.
Brutal.
Brutal.
Suspenseful.
So suspenseful. Turnus, I mean, he's fighting.
With ferocity.
Yeah.
Driven by pride.
His sense of, ownership over Latium. But Aeneas,
Driven by destiny.
everything he's endured.
He's victorious.
It's not an easy victory. I mean, there's a moment where Turnus is even disarmed.
Yeah.
And his sister, Juturna,
A divine nymph
she steps in.
gives him back his sword.
It's a desperate act.
Of love.
Love and loyalty.
A last effort to save her brother.
But in the end,
Fate prevails.
Aeneas delivers the final blow, killing Turnus, securing his victory.
Paving the way for Rome.
It's bittersweet,
It is.
achieved at a tremendous cost.
So many lives lost.
So much suffering.
But a moment of triumph.
Yeah.
The fulfillment of destiny.
The birth of a new empire.
And that's what makes the Aeneid so powerful.
So enduring.
It's a story about a nation.
But also the human cost of empire.
The sacrifices.
The losses.
The legacy of, everything.
The triumph and tragedy.
It resonates.
Across centuries.
Offering insights.
Into fate, duty, love, loss.
The human spirit.
It really made you think about destiny,
It does.
The sacrifices we make.
In pursuit of something greater.
I mean, is any goal worth that price?
That's the question.
It's a question worth considering.
The Aeneid doesn't give us any easy answers.
No, it doesn't.
But it makes us think.
It does.
About these big questions.
About the human condition.
The power of stories.
Yeah. Stories that have endured for millennia.
That's what we do here on The Deep Dive.
We explore.
Uncover.
We leave you with something to think about.
Long after the episode is over.
So until next time.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep diving deeper.
Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to be tackling Alexander Dumas' The Count of Monte Cristo.
Ooh, classic.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that seems to just resonate with people, no matter what era you're living in.
Absolutely. Themes of betrayal, imprisonment, revenge, they're timeless.
Exactly. And the journey of our protagonist, Edmond Dantes, is a roller coaster. I mean, talk about a guy who gets the short end of the stick.
Right. Starts out, young sailor, on the cusp of becoming captain, got it all. Love, a beautiful fiancée, Mercedes.
Seems like life's going pretty well for him.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
But then, wham, everything falls apart.
Talk about a plot twist.
And it's all thanks to the jealousy and scheming of the people he thought were his friends.
Dumas does a fantastic job setting this up, by the way.
He really does. You've got Danglars eaten up by professional envy, Fernand head over heels for Mercedes.
Yep. Blinded by love.
And then you have Villefort, this ambitious prosecutor with a secret he's desperate to keep hidden.
A recipe for disaster right there.
Totally. And they all play a part in framing Dantes for treason.
It's a brutal reminder, isn't it, about how quickly trust can be shattered?
Absolutely. 1 minute, Dantes is celebrating his engagement.
Next minute.
Locked up in the Chateau d'If.
Yeah.
No trial, nothing.
And that's not just any prison, it's infamous. This island fortress known for its brutal conditions.
Practically inescapable.
Definitely designed to crush any hope you might have.
So how does Dantes deal with this?
Well, at first, he's just crushed. Utterly devastated.
Makes sense.
The excerpts you provided, there are some powerful passages. I mean, he describes his cell as a place impregnated with tears. Heavy stuff.
Wow.
He's not just physically trapped, but emotionally and mentally as well. It's like even the walls themselves are mourning with him.
So bleak. But then there's a glimmer of hope, right? With Abbe Faria.
Ah, Abbe Faria. Now things start to get interesting.
Tell me about him.
Another prisoner, but this guy is a scholar, a mentor figure.
Oh, I see.
It's almost like that classic hero's journey,
Oh, yeah.
Protagonist at his lowest point, and then bam, he encounters a wise mentor who helps him rise again.
Love it.
So their meeting is pure chance. Faria is trying to tunnel his way out of prison.
Bold move.
And accidentally ends up breaking through to Dantes' cell.
Wow. What are the chances?
It's a turning point for Dantes, because Faria teaches him languages, history, science, philosophy, even swordsmanship.
Wow. He basically gives him all the tools he needs to survive.
Yeah.
And not just survive, but thrive.
Exactly. I mean, remember that part about Faria chronicling the history of Italian monarchies? Writing on scraps of linen with whatever tools he could find?
Yeah, it's incredible.
Shows his incredible dedication, his intellectual curiosity, even in the face of such hardship. But even more importantly, Faria instills in Dantes a belief in himself.
That inner strength.
Right. And then, of course, there's the whole treasure situation.
Oh, right. The island of Monte Cristo.
Faria reveals the location of this hidden treasure. And it's more than just money for Dantes. It's about reclaiming his destiny.
The destiny that was stolen from him.
Exactly. And it's not just about the wealth itself. It's about the transformation.
Right.
He becomes the Count of Monte Cristo. It's like a new identity. A mask, almost.
Allows him to slip back into society unnoticed. Get close to his enemy.
Exactly. And this transformation is so calculated, so deliberate. I mean, he uses his newfound wealth to create this aura of mystery,
He
sophistication.
becomes this almost mythical figure, right? Larger than life.
Totally. And that mystique is all part of his plan, because he's not content with just punishing his enemies.
There's more to it than that.
He wants to expose them, break them psychologically, make them truly understand the impact of their actions.
So how does he go about doing that? What's this web of revenge look like?
Patience, that's the key.
He plays the long game.
Oh yeah. He waits for the perfect moment to strike. He uses his knowledge of their weaknesses, their secrets, their ambitions against them. It's like watching a master chess player.
Every move calculated.
Absolutely. There's this incredible restraint in his approach. He's not just lashing out in anger, he's precise, surgical.
And all the while, his enemies have no idea who he really is.
Right. They're just going about their lives completely oblivious to the fact that the Count of Monte Cristo
Is the man they wronged all those years ago.
It's delicious irony, isn't it?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
So walk me through it. How does he take them down?
Well, each of their downfalls is tailored to their specific weaknesses. Let's take Danglars, for instance. consumed by greed, right?
Yeah.
So Dantes systematically strips him of his fortune, drives him to financial ruin.
Brutal.
Then you have Fernand, now the Count de Morcerf, living a life built on lies.
A house of cards?
Exactly. And Dantes exposes him, ruins his reputation, his social standing, and Villefort.
The prosecutor who sent Dantes to prison in the first place.
Dantes orchestrates the destruction of his family, a consequence of Villefort's own past actions.
It's like poetic justice. He makes them face their demons.
He's holding up a mirror, forcing them to confront the ugliness within themselves.
And do they? Do they feel remorse?
Oh, they're broken, humbled, forced to reckon with the choices they've made.
But what about Dantes? Does he find any peace in all of this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
So much to unpack here. I mean, Dantes has achieved his goal. He's gotten his revenge.
Right, but at what cost? That's what Dumas really makes us think about.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of, I don't know, emptiness maybe? Like, even though he's orchestrated these elaborate downfalls, it doesn't seem like he's found what he was looking for.
Exactly. And this is where the character of Mercedes comes back into play.
Right. After all these years, she learns the truth about Dantes, about what her husband, Fernand, did to him.
It's a powerful moment. She pleads with Dantes to spare her son, Albert, who's about to duel with Dantes, completely unaware of their connection.
Talk about dramatic irony.
Right. And this is where Dantes faces a crucial choice. Does he continue down this path of vengeance, or does he choose mercy?
And he chooses mercy.
He does. He reveals his true identity to Albert, sparing his life. It's a turning point for Dantes. It's like he's finally breaking free from the grip of his past.
So after all that planning, all the manipulation, he lets it go.
In a way, yes. He realizes that revenge hasn't brought him peace. It's only perpetuated the cycle of pain and suffering.
And the ending, how does it all wrap up? Does Dantes find any kind of happiness?
The novel ends with Dantes sailing away with Haiti,
Haiti, remind me who she is.
the daughter of Ali Pasha. Dantes rescued her from slavery years earlier. And significantly, he leaves behind all his wealth, his identity as the Count of Monte Cristo. He chooses to walk away from it all.
Wow. So he really does let go of everything.
He recognizes that holding on to the past, to that bitterness and desire for revenge, will only poison his future. He's seeking a fresh start, a chance at a life free from the weight of what happened.
It's a bittersweet ending, though. He finds some measure of peace, but there's definitely a sense of loss, too. All that he's endured, all the choices he's made.
Exactly. And that's the brilliance of Dumas' storytelling. He doesn't give us easy answers. He leaves us pondering these complex themes: justice, revenge, redemption. What does it all mean?
It really makes you think.
It does. And that's what great literature should do, right? Make us question, make us feel, make us see the world in a new light.
Absolutely. Well, that was quite a journey. The Count of Monte Cristo. A timeless tale of betrayal, imprisonment, and the complexities of revenge.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you enjoyed it.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those deep dives going. Welcome to your deep dive today.
Oh,
We're going back in time,
yeah.
not just to ancient Rome,
Okay.
but to 1895.
All right.
We've got a really fascinating source for you.
Okay.
It's an 1895 edition of Gate to Caesar.
Hmm.
It's this simplified version of Caesar's Gallic Wars, put together by William C. Collar.
Interesting.
He was an educator.
Okay.
He wanted to make Caesar accessible
Right.
for younger learners,
Yeah.
kind of like what we're doing here,
That?
taking a potentially complex topic,
Yeah.
making it engaging,
Yeah.
hopefully fun.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
in this deep dive,
Okay.
we'll explore Caesar's world
Yeah.
through Collar's simplified text.
Interesting.
We'll uncover insights into Roman history,
All right.
military strategy,
Mhm.
and even how Latin was taught over a century ago.
Huh.
Get ready for some aha moments, because Caesar's world
Yeah.
is full of surprises.
It is.
Did you know that he actually wrote a grammar book?
No, I didn't.
And his famous war commentaries?
Oh.
They were actually a clever form of political propaganda.
Oh, wow.
Let's start with Collar's preface.
Okay.
He lays out some pretty compelling reasons for simplifying Caesar.
I see.
He points out that Caesar's writing,
Uh-huh.
while brilliant,
Right.
was intended for adults.
Yeah.
It's full of complex sentence structures
Mm-hmm.
and a really compressed style.
Okay.
Even scholars debate the meanings of some passages.
Really?
So it makes you realize how challenging Latin must have been for students back then.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It was considered a cornerstone of education,
Uh-huh.
a real rite of passage.
Yeah.
So how does he go about simplifying Caesar?
Right.
Does he just dumb it down?
Whoa.
He sets out some clear principles.
Okay.
He wants to preserve the narrative flow of the Gallic Wars,
Right.
keep as much of Caesar's original wording as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and only make minimal changes to clarify the meaning.
Gotcha.
So
Wow.
why even bother?
Good question.
Why not just choose easier Latin texts to teach? Well, that's where Caesar's enduring influence comes in,
Uh-huh.
even today.
Yeah.
The Gallic Wars provide invaluable insights into Roman military history,
Right.
strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and politics.
I see.
Collar recognized this
Okay.
and wanted to make these texts accessible
Yeah.
to a wider audience,
Mm.
particularly younger learners.
Of course.
It's like he's saying,
Yeah.
look, Caesar's important,
Yeah.
even if he is a tough nut to crack.
He is.
But how do you crack that nut?
Exactly.
What was Collar's secret weapon?
Mm-hmm.
One of his key strategies was vocabulary building.
Vocabulary building.
He believed that memorizing isolated words was inefficient
Uh-huh.
and advocated for learning words in groups
Okay.
based on their shared meanings
Mm-hmm.
or etymological roots,
Etymological roots.
those common origins of words.
I see.
So instead of just throwing a list of random words at students,
Yeah.
he's saying,
Right.
hey,
Mm.
look at how these words are connected.
That makes sense.
That sounds a lot more engaging.
It does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about fostering deeper understanding.
Yes.
Collar even includes exercises that prompt students to find examples of these words
Okay.
in Caesar's text,
Mm-hmm.
connecting grammar to actual usage.
Interesting.
That makes so much sense.
It does.
You're not just learning grammar in a vacuum.
Right.
You're seeing how it works
Mm-hmm.
in the real world
Right.
of Caesar's conquests.
Okay.
But let's not forget the heart of this deep dive,
Yeah.
the Gallic Wars themselves.
Of course.
We can't get too lost in the grammar weeds.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about those epic battles.
All right.
Caesar's march across Gaul.
Yeah.
It all started in 58 BC.
58 BC.
Right. Caesar, already a powerful figure in Roman politics,
Mm-hmm.
set his sights on Gaul.
Okay.
It was a land of diverse tribes,
Uh-huh.
ripe for conquest.
Yeah.
He was driven by ambition,
Right.
a desire for military glory.
Of course.
And let's be honest,
Yeah.
a good dose of Roman imperialism.
Uh-huh.
So this wasn't exactly a peaceful diplomatic mission.
Not really.
The Gallic Wars are a chronicle of brutal conflicts.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about expanding Roman territory.
Right.
It was also about Caesar solidifying his power
Mm-hmm.
and prestige
Yeah.
back in Rome.
Okay.
Remember,
Uh-huh.
these commentaries were his way of communicating with the Roman people,
Yeah.
shaping public opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately
Yes.
furthering his own ambitions.
Interesting.
So it's not just a history book, it's almost like a political campaign.
Exactly.
And to understand Caesar's motivations,
Mm-hmm.
we need to understand the concept of virtus, a
Brutus.
core Roman value that emphasized courage,
Mm-hmm.
manliness,
Okay.
and military success.
Interesting.
For a Roman general like Caesar,
Right.
military achievements were the ultimate proof of Virtus.
I see.
It's like a window into the Roman mindset, their values,
Yeah.
their beliefs about war
Okay.
and conquest.
Right. And Caesar's commentaries were incredibly effective.
Oh, yeah?
He presented himself as a brilliant strategist,
Right.
a courageous leader, and a defender of Roman interests.
He knew how to spin a good story, that's for sure.
He did.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing for Caesar, was it?
Not exactly.
I mean, he was facing some pretty fierce opponents in Gaul.
Absolutely.
The Gallic tribes were no pushovers.
They were not.
They were skilled warriors,
Right.
fiercely independent,
Mm-hmm.
and determined to resist Roman rule.
Yeah.
Take the Belgi, for example.
The Belgi.
Caesar describes them as the bravest of all the Gallic tribes,
Interesting.
known for their ferocity in battle.
Okay.
I remember reading about the Nervii, too.
The Nervii.
They almost defeated Caesar at the Battle of Sabis.
Oh, wow.
It was a close call, even for the mighty Roman army.
It was.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Nervii were known for their surprise attacks
Uh-huh.
and guerrilla tactics.
I see.
They caught Caesar off guard. And for a moment, it seemed like the Roman advance might be halted.
Really?
But Caesar, ever the strategist,
Yeah.
rallied his troops,
Mm-hmm.
adapted his tactics,
Yeah.
and ultimately emerged victorious.
Of course.
That must have been an intense moment.
It was.
Caesar's description is quite vivid.
Uh-huh.
He talks about the Nervii charging with such ferocity
Yeah.
that they broke through the Roman lines,
Wow.
creating a moment of sheer panic.
I see.
It's a reminder that even the best laid plans
Mm.
can go awry in the heat of battle.
Well, for sure.
And it makes you realize that these weren't just abstract military maneuvers.
Right.
These are real people
Yeah.
fighting for their lives,
Uh-huh.
their homes, their way of life.
Exactly.
And on the Roman side, you have these soldiers,
Right.
often far from home,
Mm-hmm.
facing danger and hardship.
Yeah.
Even in his concise prose,
Okay.
Caesar reveals glimpses
Yeah.
into the realities of life in a Roman camp.
Interesting.
What was it like to be a regular soldier in Caesar's army? What was it, all drills and discipline?
Discipline was certainly paramount?
Or were there moments of camaraderie,
Sure.
even humor?
Well, Caesar doesn't dwell on those details,
Okay.
but we can glean some insights from his text.
Yeah, so
For example, he mentions the presence of women in the camp.
women.
Wives,
Really?
family members,
Interesting.
and what were known as camp followers.
Wait, there were women in the Roman camps?
There were.
What were their roles?
Their roles were primarily domestic.
Okay.
They provided support services,
Uh-huh.
mended clothes,
Mm.
prepared food,
Right.
and helped maintain a semblance of normalcy
Yeah.
in the harsh conditions of a military campaign.
So even in the midst of war,
Yeah.
there was a sense of community,
Yeah.
of family.
Mm-hmm.
It humanizes the whole experience.
It does.
And it reminds us that these massive historical events
Right.
were ultimately driven by individual choices,
Yeah.
actions, and sacrifices.
Right.
Caesar might have been the mastermind behind the Gallic Wars,
He was.
but it was the soldiers,
Yeah.
both men and women,
Mhm.
who carried out his orders
Right.
and ultimately determined the outcome of these campaigns.
Precisely. Now, going back to Caesar's writing,
Okay.
it's fascinating how even his seemingly simple descriptions of battles can reveal a lot about Roman military strategy and tactics.
I'm all ears.
Okay.
Give me a strategy lesson straight from Caesar himself.
We'll take the siege of Bibrax, for example.
The siege of Bibrax.
Caesar describes how he carefully positioned his troops,
Okay.
constructed siege works,
Mm.
and used battering rams to breach the enemy's defenses.
Wow.
He also highlights the importance of maintaining
Right.
and protecting his flanks from attack.
It's like a masterclass in siege warfare.
Exactly.
And notice how Caesar emphasizes the discipline
Yeah.
and determination of his soldiers.
Mm.
Even in the face of setbacks,
Mm-hmm.
he's showcasing the superiority of Roman training and tactics. He was a brilliant propagandist, that's for sure.
It was.
But his tactics weren't always foolproof, right?
That's true.
Remember the battle against the Neri we discussed earlier?
Yeah.
Caesar's cavalry was initially ineffective
Right.
because of the dense hedges
Mm-hmm.
and difficult terrain.
I see.
So even the mighty Roman army had its weaknesses.
They did.
They had to adapt to the unique conditions of Gaul,
Right.
the terrain,
Uh-huh.
the weather,
Mm-hmm.
the fighting styles of their opponents.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about brute force.
Yeah.
It was about strategy,
Right.
adaptability,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes a bit of luck.
That's right.
that makes it all the more impressive
It does.
that Caesar was ultimately successful.
Yeah.
He faced some serious challenges.
He did. And his commentaries, even with their inherent bias,
Mm-hmm.
offer a fascinating glimpse into the
Yes.
complexities of ancient warfare,
Okay.
Roman military organization,
Uh,
and the clash of cultures that defined this era.
it's like we're stepping back in time,
Mm.
seeing the world through Caesar's eyes,
Yes.
even if those eyes were sometimes looking out for his own interests.
Right. Uh-huh. Exactly.
Speaking of language,
Yeah.
we haven't forgotten about Caller's unique approach to teaching Latin.
Of course not.
It's time to dive back into those vocabulary lists.
All right.
So we've got these vocabulary lists that
Mhm.
Caller put together.
Yeah.
What makes them so special?
Mm.
Are they just your average Latin to English translations?
Not quite.
Caller's approach is all about connecting the dots.
Okay.
He groups words not just by their definition,
Huh?
but by their shared etymological roots.
Right.
Remember, etymology is the study of the origin of words
Mm-hmm.
and how their meanings evolve over time.
Exactly.
So he's not just giving you the translation.
Yeah.
He's showing you where the word comes from.
Right.
It's family history, so to speak.
I like that.
For example, he might have a cluster of words,
Yeah.
all stemming from the Latin root duc, which means to lead.
Okay.
You'll see how it branches out
Mm-hmm.
into a deuce.
Adduce.
The
Right.
deuce. And even duke.
Could
Spear.
be.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is.
I never realized how many English words have Latin roots.
There's a lot.
It's like a secret code waiting to be cracked.
That's a great way to put it.
That's exactly what Collar wanted to do,
Yeah.
to empower students to decode the meaning of unfamiliar words
Mm.
by recognizing their familiar roots.
Right.
It's a much more engaging and effective way of learning vocabulary.
It is.
Instead of memorizing isolated words,
Yeah.
you're understanding the underlying logic
Mm.
and structure of the language.
That's right.
It's like having a key to unlock the secrets of language.
I like that.
And it makes you realize how interconnected languages are,
It does.
and how they've influenced each other
Yeah.
over centuries.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Mm.
And this approach has implications
Yeah.
far beyond learning Latin. It can help you understand English vocabulary better, too.
Absolutely.
Recognizing those Latin roots can give you clues to the meaning
Mm.
of unfamiliar words.
Oh, for sure.
It's like having a superpower,
Oh,
the ability to decipher words.
right.
I wish I had learned Latin this way.
I know, me
It
too.
would have been so much more interesting.
Yeah.
Collar was clearly ahead of his time
Uh-huh.
in terms of his pedagogical approach.
He was.
He recognized the importance of making learning active and engaging.
Yes.
And he understood the power of etymology
Uh-huh.
to unlock the mysteries of language.
It's amazing.
So we've journeyed through ancient Gaul with Caesar,
Yeah.
explored the intricacies of Roman military strategy,
Mhm.
and even taken a fascinating detour
Yeah.
into the world of 19th century pedagogy.
A lot of ground covered.
It's been a journey through time and language.
It has.
And it highlights how even a seemingly simple textbook like Gate to Caesar
Yeah.
can open up a wealth of historical and linguistic insights.
Wow.
It's amazing to think that these stories from ancient Rome,
Mm-hmm.
filtered through the lens of a 19th century educator,
Mm-hmm.
can still resonate with us today.
They do.
They speak to timeless themes
Yeah.
of ambition,
Ambition.
power, the clash of cultures,
Of course.
and the enduring power of language.
The power of language.
And Collar's work reminds us that learning,
Mm-hmm.
even
Yeah.
about ancient subjects,
Yeah.
can be an engaging
Right.
and even transformative experience.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If this deep dive has sparked your interest,
Mm.
I encourage you to explore further.
Yeah.
Read Caesar's Gallic Wars for yourself,
Mm.
and maybe even check out Collar's edition.
Okay.
You might be surprised at how relevant these ancient stories still feel today.
Oh, for sure.
Who knows, you might even start a Caesar-themed podcast.
Ah.
Until next time, keep exploring
Yeah.
and happy learning.
Happy learning.
And remember,
Mhm.
Veni, Vidi, Vici.
Veni, vidi, vici.
We came, we saw, we learned.
We did